We've been blessed with an ultimate fighting ability, and we must always use it for the good of humanity.
The people versus M.U.S.C.L.E. Millions are being captured. America is safe.
M.U.S.C.L.E. things, what could be worse?
M.U.S.C.L.E. Part 2. They're orange, they're green, they're purple.
Worse.
M.U.S.C.L.E. things in disguise. They're hiding everywhere.
I can't stand them! I can't stop them!
M.U.S.C.L.E. Part 2. Hundreds hide in packs, separately sold.
Back in the 80s, we had these little pink creatures called M.U.S.C.L.E, which was an acronym for millions of unusual small creatures lurking everywhere. Over here in the States, we didn't know anything else other than there were hundreds of these little small figures to collect, and that wrestling was the backdrop for this toy lineup. They came out of nowhere, and before we knew it, they were everywhere. Even if you weren't collecting them, I guarantee that you ended up owning one of these, or a few of these, either by accident, or they ended up in your house, somehow. This toy line managed to merge two things that every kid back then loved. Weird, overpowered alien-looking creatures, and wrestling. How can you go wrong with that combination? Wrestling alone was huge. The WWF hype train had been going off the rails ever since WrestleMania kicked off in '85. These toys did the sensible business choice of tagging along for the ride. See what I did there? Tagging, wrestling, tag team. Never mind. In fact, it was an easy transition since the franchise was already based on wrestling, and that sport is very much a popular pastime in Japan. I would say even more so than here. Japanese wrestling is very entwined into their culture and approach the pastime a bit differently than we do here, where technique and overall athletic abilities are favored more over storylines and theatrics. To give you an example, here is Hulk Hogan wrestling in the WWF, and then here he is wrestling over in Japan. I never even knew he had those moves until YouTube came around and I was able to see him in action in Japan. Wow, the contrast is just mind-blowing. The toy line originated in Japan but is a manga in 1979. It was created by Yoshinori Nakai and Takashi Shimada and first appeared in the pages of Shonen Manga, the magazine. As of today, 2026, the Kinnikuman manga is considered one of the best-selling in Japan overall, selling about 85 million copies in total. That's insane. Now I'm going to go over the plot here for those people that are not very familiar with M.U.S.C.L.E or Kinnikuman, so just bear with me here. The plot here is that Kinnikuman is a superhero of sorts from the planet Kinniku. When he discovers that he is a prince, he sets out to prove himself of that title by entering wrestling events, battling other super wrestlers from across the universe. I'm not gonna get into the details because then the video will be like 2 hours long, but trust me, it gets deep. If you have not seen the original anime from the 80s, I recommend you do so. It is an all-out slapstick humor that only Japan could create. I found the episodes available for free via archive. I'll post the link in the description area below. I'm currently watching it while I finish this video, and it is like watching a video version of Speed. It originally started airing in 1983, and a toy lineup was released the same year by Bandai. 418 figures will be released in Japan, most of them sold via gashapon, or what we here in the US call the little toy capsule machine thingies. You've seen them in like supermarkets and gas stations. But here in the States, Mattel got the rights and rebranded them to M.U.S.C.L.E. They were sold via various blister packs, and soon after we got the first M.U.S.C.L.E video game. And as a kid, I was excited. A wrestling game based on this toy lineup. That's awesome. I wonder how many characters the game would pack out of the 236 we got here in the States. I wonder who they're going to include in the game. The thoughts are just... Oh, crap. 8? We only got 8 characters? Okay, maybe the majority of the game's charm went into incorporating a great complex wrestling system that will... Nope, not that either. God damn it, someone's gonna pay for this. Japan had already gone through 2 other games based on the Kinnikuman manga. Kinnikuman on the PC 88, and then Kinnikuman Colossal Deathmatch for the MSX. Well, you know what? I take it back. And so this NES turd would mark the end of Kinnikuman in the US for the next 14 years. I'm sorry, what's that? It didn't sell well? Well, have you played the freaking game? Of course it didn't sell well. Japan and even Europe will continue to see games for the franchise, however. First on the Super NES, then the Game Boy, hell, even the Wonder Swan got a Kinnikuman game. The Wonder Swan. Stick around because I'm going to cover this little talked about handheld soon. In 2002, Kinnikuman would return to TV, now called Kinnikuman Second Generation.
Get a body slam, the human race. Wrestlers race to our defense with strength and speed and flatulence.
This is when we here in the West would get the Gamecube game based on this new series called Ultimate Muscles, Legends vs. New Generation. This is the game that I'm going to be covering on this video.
Ultimate Muscle, Legends versus New Generation!
The new game comes from Kinnikuman's son, Kid Muscle, and the new generation of wrestlers, setting up a new training factory to help train new wrestlers to combat the DMP, which stands for the Demon Making Plant, an evil organization that's been training other wrestlers in order to destroy the Earth. And that makes no sense whatsoever. Where would they wrestle then if they destroyed the Earth? The game was released on the Gamecube in November 2002 and was developed and published by Bandai. It utilized a cel-shaded animation technique found in other games of that time, like Jet Grind Radio, Klonoa 2, and then Wind Waker, although Fear Effect was one of the first games to utilize this technique in 2000. You start with 18 characters to choose from and 6 mystery slots to unlock 6 more characters. You got mainstream series characters such as, okay, wait a second, hold on a second. I get to choose a character that has the face of a walrus and the body of a wrestler, and he's one of the non-hidden characters? Sign me up, because this is gonna be awesome.
Got him! Nice! Run like this out of this one!
How many times can you say that you played as a walrus-looking wrestler that back heel kicked another dude that looked like an antelope with devil horns in front of a raucous crowd? Yeah, this game is gonna rock. You can play as a single player or get up to 3 other friends to play as tag teams or all-out battle royale type match. There are also a few options in the menu screen, including looking up the story of the characters, creating your own character, that one was fun, transfer information between memory cards. I'm assuming this is to share the character that you created with others. You know, unfortunately, I don't have any info to go into detail on this option since I can't find the damn manual online. Yeah, can you believe that? It's 2026 and I cannot find this freaking manual online. I can find the manual for Intellivision Lives for the Gamecube, but not Ultimate Muscle. Someone, please explain this to me. You can also play in a 16-match tournament or just play versus mode and even collect the muscle toys I mentioned earlier. Hey look, Gachapon. That's a nice little throwback there. I like that you get a close-up view of each toy that you buy. I don't remember them being colored like the way they are here in the game when they were released here in the States. That would have been really awesome. They always had just one single color, pink, when I was collecting them. Then they came out with I think blue, purple, and I think green was another color. I could be wrong there. Don't quote me on that. The game is a fast-paced wrestling game, and I mean fast. Even when I started to get used to the controls, the computer would just beat the living shit out of me. Look at this, I'm really trying here, I really am. And unlike wrestling, the only way to win here is to knock out your opponent. There is no 3-count pin of any type, or at least none that I could find anywhere while I was playing it. Now, just like in the original NES game, power-ups get thrown into the ring as well as objects that can damage you and your opponent and even hinder you severely. Unlike the NES version where you just had one power-up ball thrown in, now you have ramen soup and other boosts that you can collect. But you know what? So can your enemy. Also, in a regular tag team wrestling match, if any one of the tag team wrestlers is pinned, the team loses. Everybody knows that. Here, once you lose or your opponent loses, your partner steps into the ring. So it's basically like King of Fighters or one of the versus Capcom games.
Let's see some action!
Of course, this would not be a wrestling game if each wrestler didn't have his own finishing move. They look great, especially when they are being performed over and over on me because the computer is so damn cheap. I can't do a finishing move. The entire game has a very arcade feel to it. You can enjoy it without having to invest too much time into it, but if you choose to do so, then it will reward you with the small unlockables, such as getting more toys, and unlocking certain characters. But if for some reason this game's art style or gameplay it's just not for you, then there's also Galactic Wrestling featuring Ultimate Muscle on the PS2, Kinnikuman Muscle Generations on the PSP, as well as Kinnikuman Muscle Grand Prix and Part 2 in the arcades. The PS2's game's art style goes a little bit different and doesn't use the cel-shaded animation technique that the Gamecube does. It goes for a more realistic tone, is the best way I can put it. And it offers a larger lineup of wrestlers from the get-go, as well as a ton of characters overall. This one was released in 2004 and was seen as an upgraded version of Ultimate Muscle on the Gamecube. The PSP game would be released in 2006 and was basically a watered-down version of the PS2 game. Banpresto will go on to release Grand Prix and the sequel in 2006 and 7. The arcade ports went with a more one-on-one fighting gaming style, similar to that of Street Fighter or King of Fighters or pretty much any one-on-one fighting game, with a stage revolving around you as you moved about. And that's a shame since they went away with what made Kinnikuman interesting, which was wrestling, and tried to inject itself into a market that was by that time oversaturated and slowly dying. And with those games, the Kinnikuman saga and the video game side of media would come to an end. The manga and anime would continue to add to the Kinnikuman lore. Just last year, Kinnikuman returned to the anime scene with a new story arc over in Japan that is now available on Netflix called Kinnikuman Perfect Story Arc. So if you feel the 80s and maybe the early 2000s anime is a bit, too outdated for you, and I don't know why, try this one out. I have not seen it yet as I am binge watching the original 80s episodes first, but I'm definitely going to check it out once I get around to it. Ultimate Muscle on the Gamecube is another example of why I feel that this console is severely underrated and showed just how committed developers were to it and how Nintendo was not afraid to experiment with different gameplay and art styles when bringing games over to it. Ultimate Muscle is a game that deserves a little bit more attention and can serve as a fun-filled experience that can help you blow off some steam, grab yourself a couple of friends and some extra controllers, and boy, you got one hell of a good time. The Muscle series and the lineage goes on for what feels like forever, so if you guys want to check out more about the toys, the manga, and other media, check out other YouTube channels that cover the franchise in more painstaking detail. So, was Ultimate Muscle your first introduction to Kinnikuman, or were one of the earliest titles your first foray into the popular franchise? Well, when I say popular, I mean popular in Japan. And should Kinnikuman make a comeback into the video game world? Share with us all, and until next video, keep watching and keep gaming.
Nice roll first, driver! And that signals the end of the match. Wow! Talk about incredibly intense! Hey, Doc Nakano!